My message to him is, when we catch you playing a non-constructive role, there will be a price to pay. George W. Bush, United States President.
Welcome back to Inside Iraq. We are discussing al-Maliki's premiership for the last 2 years with Yus Hilterman and Ghassan al-Atiyah. Ghassan, is al-Maliki out of the woods? Can he count his chicken, or his problems are yet to come?
No doubt, it is still a critical period. But one thing we have to look at, now he has a sporting chance of success. The following situation is the next provincial elections. The Skiri, or the Supreme Council, decided to stand separately with a separate list. Yesterday, the Iraqi government decided that all parties should not use the religious figures or the mosque and the Husseyniyat, which the Supreme Council was not happy with, and they're definitely against it. These are two things which will decide what the Maliki will do. He also having the problem of Ja'fari having a wing of the Al-Da'wa party. If next election, the provincial in October, will be postponed indefinitely, that will be a disaster for him. But if he succeed in having the election, even by the end delayed a month or two, and having the election and creating a new alliance on the provincial side, where he will show the Iraqi that he has his own constituency and his new allies, that will definitely improve his position. In addition, I would like to point out, he is the one who opened to the Arabs in a manner which strengthened his hand. King Abdullah of Jordan will be visiting Baghdad. He will go to the Emirates. He is in a position now to present himself as an Iraqi who is not playing an Iranian card, or rather, he will be the person who is capable of putting the Iranian pressure or influence at a limit.
In order to achieve that, Ghassan al-Atiyah, sorry for the interruption used, he has to also open up to the Sahwas, he has to open up to the Sunnis, he has to open up to many parts of Iraq that so far are extremely worried about his secret agenda, or perhaps his old ties with Iran. To the extent that al-Sahwa and the Sunnis, they helped him in order to achieve this stability, how much he has to come forward in order to accommodate them used?
Well, I think he does have to come forward, and I think it's also one of the most difficult issues to address in Iraq today. If he fails, then it's hard to blame him, because this is the issue of the gulf of mistrust that exists between the former victims of the regime and the perceived perpetrators. And I know, you shouldn't put it in a black and white sort of way, Shiite versus Sunni, but for many Shiite Islamists, especially the parties that are now in power, they see it very much that they were the victims and that the Sunnis, broadly speaking, were the perpetrators. They were at least supporters of the former regime. And now to allow exponents of the Sunni Arab community who were in the security services and who were in the forefront of the insurgency since 2003, to bring those people into the state apparatus, especially into the security forces, the police, but maybe also other security forces, is a huge challenge. And they see it as really an attempt by these groups, the Sahwas and the others, to come back through the back window into the state in order to undermine it and to grab power and to restore some kind of regime that is not Saddam Hussein, but a lesser form of that. That is the fear on one side. Of course, on the other side, these groups, the Sahwas, the Sons of Iraq, whatever they call themselves, they don't trust the Shiite government because they see it as a proxy of Iran. They very much want now, they've chosen to be part of that, and they want to integrate in it. But also there is absolutely no trust that this will be done. And the fear is that the integration will be done on a regional basis, where you will get Iraqi government forces or police forces that are strictly Sunni in Sunni areas, but not in Shiite areas.
Ghassan,
and I think if that happens, then we haven't really resolved anything.
Ghassan, we talked about Iran, we talked about Iraq, we talked about the US, al-Maliki, al-Hakim. We did not talk about what matters for the Iraqis. Perhaps some people might think it's mundane, but it's not. It's the economy, the employment, the electricity. If he cannot deliver on essential services between now and the elections, sometimes in October, November, will that detract from his achievement so far?
Yes, this is a very important point. However, I would like to point out the situation presented to the Iraqis now those independent Iraqis who are think in terms of Iraqi nationalism, that we have to be independent of the American or the Iranian, this is a loud position, but actually they are the weakest link in the Iraqi politics. Now the Iraqis, the politician I mean, basically are divided between the two ranks. Those who will see that with the choice they have either American dominance or Iranian dominance. In this sense, now we have a new alignment. There are those among the Sunni who feel at least with the American we can deal better than the Iranian. The new development is al-Maliki as a Shia is gradually taking the position that he is allying himself with the American, and the American will be the catalyst, the conduit that will link him with the Sahwa and others, and the guarantor for the new coalition in addition to this are the Kurds. This new coalition, a pro-American coalition, will be in a position to change the landscape of Iraqi politics.
Stay with me for just a second. Let me get a comment from Yust. Ghassan al-Atiyah just drew a brilliant, creative, new alliances. Perhaps they are in the genesis of emerging. Will that lead subsequently and by default used to some sort of a distance, if not a breakdown, between al-Maliki and Abdulaziz al-Hakim?
No, not necessarily, because I think that Abdulaziz al-Hakim and the Supreme Council have also been juggling between their Iranian sponsors and their American sponsors. I think they are, in the end, Iraqis. They don't like foreign occupation, they don't like the Iranians, as no Iraqis do, and they've been juggling. Of course, the Supreme Council has an Iranian legacy, but they've been trying to shed that with some success, but not totally. They still don't have popular support in Iraq, partly for that reason. And I think that much depends on what the Americans are going to do in the future. Are they going to stay in Iraq? And if so, at what level of troop involvement? If there's a major troop drawdown, then I think the Iranians will have the longer breath in Iraq. And then these parties will have to rethink any alliance with the United States.
Let me stay with you, Yus, for just a second. Al-Badr Brigade, the military wing of Skiri, somehow lock, stock and barrel is inside the Iraqi security forces. And unless that security forces is cleansed of all these criminal elements that in the past they not only attacked the Sadris but attacked many other segments of Iraqi society, do you see first of all the Americans allowing them to stay, and do you see that linkage between Tehran and Badr Brigade will remain?
Well, I don't think the Americans are in any position to allow or not allow anyone to do anything in Iraq. They have very little effective influence at that sort of micro level of who is involved in which security services. Of course, you find criminal types all around, inside the security services, but also outside. You find thugs in the Sadrist movement, and you find them in the Interior Ministry. This is a big problem of Iraq that has descended into chaos in a sort of a failed state situation. This needs to be cleaned up, and that's going to take a long time. But
until that happens, let me get a final response from Ghassan al-Atiyah. Ghassan, you are in Washington. You have good contact with many different aspects of the U.S. government. What are they telling you? You are staying in Washington for a long time. What is their assessment of Iraq for the next period?
I feel they count a lot on al-Maliki, and they feel, and they do trust him, and they think he can deliver. In this sense, al-Maliki has opened doors, and they think also that once the new alignment in Iraqi politics, then the question is how they can help him and how the other Iraqi forces will take their position. Because if it will be a clash between the United States and Iran, and the gap is widening between the two sides, and in that case, the Iraqis will be in a very difficult position, where those who will take the side of the Iranian,
yes,
and there are many of them, by the way, as well, some of the American, they feel that the improvement is already there in Iraq, and the Iraqi budget for next year will be in the neighborhood of $72 billion. Has never been like this in its history. That's why they feel more optimistic that things will go their way, and they can squeeze the Iranian in Iraq rather than be squeezed by them.
Ghassan al-Atiyah, Joost Hilterman. Gentlemen, thank you for being guests on Inside Iraq. To access the show and to send us your comments, please go to aljazeera.net/English. That's all the time we have for this week. Join me next week when we take another look inside Iraq. Goodbye.